So the Stoicheia grade 3 for the start decks is actually granblue and not Aquaforce. Let's talk about that. Check out Dueling Guard's deck boxes, playmats, and binders. The great quality products that are anime based. They continually have more anime options becoming available. Use the affiliated link in the description for a 5% discount on your next purchase. So interesting enough, our Aquaforce unit is really granblue. So revival mechanics is not new to Stoicheia, and so how things work with this unit specifically, it's the second skill, Energy Blast 4. Discard the top 2 cards of your deck and choose up to 2 grade 3 or less unit cards from your drop and then call them into a rearguard circle. And essentially this is starting to use the Energy Blast mechanic that we just got introduced about a week ago. And it's really cool because there's no Counter Blast, no Soul Blast tied to this. This is just purely Energy Blast as well. And I'll cover that a little more as that is important with the skills. But it does have another skill where you can CB1, search your deck for up to the card with the same name as this unit, reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck, and this unit gets plus 10k until the end of the turn. So essentially you'll be reviving 2 cards to set up a field, and then you'll be attacking, and from what it looks like, it's a 3 attack deck. Your Vanguard gets a little bit beefy with 23 without Persona Ride. If you so happen to Persona Ride, this can easily be 33k for the Vanguard line by itself, not boosted. So not horrible, but at the same time, it seems kind of like lackluster. But if you really think about with granblue too, the power of the revival mechanic is really determined on the units that you do revive. And essentially, those are the units that really make the deck make or break, essentially. And so the next question is like, what kind of cards do they have actually to revive? And so let's cover some of them. So there's Scorpio. This is where essentially discarded from the hand or in your right face. You can call this to rearguard. It's a free body, but it's called at rest, so that's not that great. Grade 1, we got Sunbathing Dragon. When this unit boosts, if your drop zone has 10 or more cards, Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, draw a card, and this unit gets 5k until the end of the battle. So essentially, this is a 13k booster with some draw power, and this is one of the units that actually use a CB and your soul at that point too. So again, your Vanguard is going to use Energy Blast, so keep that in mind. Now, this is where things get a little more interesting with the grade 2 Battle Siren Phalantia. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle from drop, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Cristianos, this unit gets plus 10k until the end of turn. This is actually a beater essentially. And so with some of the support in Stoicheia, a lot of it is tied to the name of the Vanguard. So think about like Flagberg, Zorga, Magnolia, and so on. So some of those beaters or those multi-attackers are not available for Cristianos as a generic card. And so we had to kind of use what we get for the right line essentially too. So the question is to what can we do to really apply pressure early on? And what's really cool with the granblue mechanic is that because you know that you're going to revive cards, then you can actually just commit cards from your hand early on and potentially just use them back in the next turn or two anyways. Now, this is super important because as we notice with Cristianos, the revival skill is not CB related. So you cannot be CB denied. And at this point, to what we know, we can be Energy Blast denied. We just get 3 Energy Blasts per turn thanks to the Ride Crest card thingy. And essentially, if we generate more Energy Blasts with other card effects that we're yet to see as well in the future. So if you call cards early, especially if your grade 1s or your grade 2s are really just 5k shields anyway, you might as well get multi-attack in that sense of just 3 attacks starting at turn 1. You could be as aggressive or as reckless as you can be, but still, like, even if they get your rearguards, you can just revive them back with your grade 3. So this can help the deck too moving forward, because from what I see, this is going to be a 3 attack deck. So having that early aggression is going to help and push that damage early on. So that way they're like more of that sweet spot around 4 damage, if not more ideally. And your attacks are actually going to have some pressure behind them because they're so close to 6 damage. I do want to cover the right line too, because it does play a role with the strategy. So the grade 1, essentially when it's ruled by the grade 2, you can draw 2 cards and then you choose 2 cards from your hand and discard them. This literally feeds your drop zone, which is phenomenal at that point too. So you get to selectively put cards into the drop zone. Depending, caveat is really that they're in your hand to begin with, but drawing 2 cards and potentially getting like a piece or 2 to really just shove into the drop zone, that's ideal essentially. And the second skill, during your turn, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Cristianos in its card name, this unit gets plus 5k. So this could potentially be a booster as a rearguard, so you can have multiple copies in the deck, or if you Soul Blast this unit and then revive it, now you have a 13k booster as well. Although with the grade 2 Variety Feast Dragon, when this unit is rolled upon the grade 3 with Cristianos in its name, choose up to one grade 1 or less card and you may call it to the rearguard circle. So do note that this calls as normal compared to like the Zizzer Scorpio where it calls itself rest. This can just revive boosters in that sense. Also, you could take advantage of grade 1s that go into soul, such as like the Ballroom Mushroom. And if you soul blast that out later on, you can keep using Ballroom Mushrooms and have tokens and also like create token boosters, but also like get rid of cards on the field if you need to like build up to a better field essentially too. And of course, Ballroom Mushroom is a card that essentially will give you soul too. So depending on your situation, there are key grade 1s that you can use, whether it be the boosters or just like Ballroom Mushroom types of cards. The second skill is interesting. And so if you have a grade 3 or greater Cristianos Vanguard, this unit gets shield plus 10k. So it's already a 5k shield, so plus 10k will make it a 15k shield, which is actually really good. So if you don't have your beat sticks yet in the drop zone, this could be an option where if this was soul blasted, you revive with Cristianos, now you have an intercept that's 15k. So if your opponent is attacking your Vanguard, you can easily intercept. And what's really cool, again, the revival skill is not tied to a counterblast. So you can purposely stay at very low damage so that you're in a very good spot of winning. You can even play really at 0 damage, which is kind of cool when you think about it that way. Transitioning a little bit too, there's another card that was revealed with Conceal Archer Shazara. This card, when this card is discarded from hand, they're in your right face, you can Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. And this is relevant because again, your soul and your counterblast aren't really used as much. So this can be cards that you can discard and be able to like gain advantage that way. And as we can see with the list, we can see what we're getting. So we're getting 4 copies of that card and a lot of the other cards that were revealed as well, but also some of like the generic PGs with like the triggers too. If I were to build this deck, I would build it in the mindset of granblue. So if you can increase that crit to a crit maximum and then go from there, whether it be fronts or draws, just depends what the deck needs. If it needs consistency or if it's able to use fronts and be more destructive at that point, that's phenomenal at that point too. I do have some other ideas that I like to share, so that way you guys can, brainstorm it as well. Again, Ballroom Mushroom, potentially a good target to reusable revivals, soul blasting, reviving, going into soul, generate tokens kind of deal. You can use cards that soul blast on discards, such as the grade 2 that we showed, but we also have the cyclers already, such as Margaret and Stoicheia, so you can soul blast one and draw a card essentially. So it does the same thing, but at cheaper cost, which I think would be the best before you start diving into the other ones. But if you can't afford those, then the start decks include the Soul Blast 2 ones, so that works as well. If you want to add to more of the revival stuff, there are orders that you could generically use, such as Burial Chobari Condensation is a great one that also gives power and also Soul Blast. Frozen Resentment does a Soul Blast as well, but without the power, it actually checks the top 3 and you mill one of those cards. So it helps feed the drop zone, especially early on, which was probably would come up a little more to help this deck's consistency overall if you're looking for like beaters and other key pieces that you want to take advantage as well. To give it a little more consistency and mill into, you can also check out Hendrina as a card, just to mill 3 essentially, and other like Bilber, for example, too as well. That's also a grade 1 too, so that could be a good call target for the grade 2 as well, if it's in the drop zone, so you can just keep repeatedly using it and actually use the soul for that too. That's actually not bad because it also calls a card from the top of the deck from your check top 3 essentially as well. So you're milling and you're calling something that's better, whether it be a booster or potentially an attacker for the next turn as well. You can still go more with the order such as Nectar and also Yea Wandering Souls. So this deck will only twin drive. So if you use Yea Wandering Souls and you pair it up with enough orders or even that grade 1 that counts as an order in hand, that essentially can help you have triple drive, which can have a little more pressuring, especially you're able to deck down with some cards that you play. Ultimately, that can help. If you want to go a little more like rearguard pressure, you can do the Nectar route. That gives that unit essentially 5k for every 5 cards in the drop zone. And then once you have that 15k threshold, it will gain an additional crit. So that helps with a lot of crit pressure too. So Nectar is also good and it's free essentially. You just play it and you just get it essentially. And then lastly, some cards that help with power. So think about like Thailand, when you Persona right, you can Soul Blast and give 10k to units. And essentially you have cards like Aglio and Liuka that can retire itself to give a unit 10k or give 2 units plus 5k. And also like the original like grade 1 bug that when on place you can give something plus 5k too. So just cards that have more power when they're on place essentially, or just removing themselves as a benefit of you reviving cards, which can really doesn't neg you, but essentially can break even or even just plus, but also give power while you're also generating a field too. So to wrap up, like the reveals were interesting. I'll say that. I was not expecting a granblue type effect. I was literally thinking something that might be related to like Aquaforce. I mean, you look at that card, literally it screams Aquaforce. So I'm a little surprised it went to this direction. But if I were to look back when Overdress was announced and when they were saying that the clans were becoming one nation, I literally see all the cards from the different nations like Zoo and also like Mega Nanalika combining, like Neo Nectar, Mega Colony, Aquaforce, granblue. Literally, it's the amalgamation of them too, which is interesting, whether it be the art aesthetics with the cards or also the revival mechanics that you get as well. Let me know your thoughts on it too. I like to hear like if you guys have some other ideas, if you're trying it out, let me know how things are going with you with this deck. More than likely, I'll pick up this deck as well just because it's still Stoicheia. Regardless, I'll play regardless of Stoicheia. So with that, amigos, on to the next one. Bye!